welcome back. Blake Cousins, we are live, Third Phase of Moon, live Friday night radio, and it is my special privilege to bring to you Stephen Bassett. Stephen Bassett is the executive director of the Paradigm Research Group. He founded it in 1996 to end the government-imposed embargo on the truth behind extraterrestrial-related phenomenon. He's spoken to audiences around the world about the implications of formal disclosure by world governments of an extraterrestrial presence engaging the human race, and he's given over 1,000 radio and television interviews, including Larry King, and he's been all over CNN. This guy's big in the ufology world. He's worked extensively for the national and international media, and in 2013, he produced the Citizens Hearing on Disclosure at the National Press Club in Washington. Now, we all heard of the Citizen Hearing Disclosure. It's a massive petition to make our president speak, our government officials speak about the extraterrestrial existence. Now, since 2014, the Paradigm Research Group has been conducting political initiatives in Washington, D.C. One is seeking the first hearings in the Capitol since 1968 regarding the extraterrestrial presence, the issue of it. The other sought to force the ET issue in 2016, the presidential campaign, going forward from the U.S. elections outcome. The Paradigm Research Group will now also operate under the DBA, the PRG International. And Stephen will be seeking lectures, government contracts, and funding from around the world. And, that's what he needs to do. We need to fund his cause because it is trying to get disclosure. That's what it's all about. And wow, it is my pleasure to bring in Stephen Bassett. It's been a while, and he's with us live. And if you've got a question for Stephen, wow, you could call into the show. And the number is 347-934-0378. And press number 1 on your keypad, and you'll be taken straight to the top. And maybe you can ask Stephen Bassett about disclosure, what's happening next. But wow, Stephen, hey, thanks for joining us. You're live, Third Phase of Moon. How you doing tonight?
It's my pleasure to be with you again. It's been a while.
Wow, it's been a while. You're coming a little soft. It seems like your audio went down. How are we doing now?
Let's see. Make sure the mic is really close. Oh, yeah. I see what happened. That should be better.
Yeah, there we go. We got a good audio. Now we are live. It's been a while since we've spoken with Stephen Bassett. He held his citizen hearing over there in Washington, D.C. He brought in congressmen, and, they were pretty much convinced that we're not alone in the universe. Now, let me ask you this, Stephen, because I know that you were saying earlier that President Obama was going to be the man that might disclose the UFOs. What happened? Why didn't he do it?
Okay. Perfectly legitimate question. Very long answer. We came very, very close to possibly ending the truth embargo on the ET issue. And the catalyst for this happening was, in fact, the presidential campaign of Secretary Clinton. The situation was this. Since 2001, PRG has been doing everything it could to convince the mainstream media to aggressively investigate and bring to light the particulars about the connection between the Clintons and the Clinton administration of 93 to 2001 to the ET issue. And bring that story out. The Clintons were engaged by Lawrence Rockefeller. It's called the Rockefeller Initiative. You can easily find out about that on the internet. In fact, if you go to paradigmresearchgroup.org, there's a link directly to the documents confirming the Rockefeller Initiative. That connection, of course, never went away, though the Clintons never talked about it after 1996. They never talked about it at all, nor were they ever interviewed by the media. Now, that would have been the end of it. when President Clinton left office in 2001. However, as we know, the Clintons had substantial political ambitions. Many of the people in the White House had political ambitions. So the idea that, well, we'll just let this go, given the fact that there is an extraterrestrial presence and the government has embargoed it, was not acceptable. So from 2001 up until virtually the election of last November, PRG was working to get that story out, because if the story of the Clinton ET connection were engaged, and if the 16 or so living principals to that initiative, the Rockefeller Initiative, were interviewed, and certainly if the government principals to that initiative, or the Rockefeller Initiative, were interviewed, the story would explode. It would be a massive story. It would quickly put enormous pressure on both the White House and the Pentagon to pretty much come clean. They would have to cut some sort of deal, and ultimately, under tremendous pressure from the media, with a lot of questions they're just not able to answer, at least under the truth embargo, would result in disclosure. And of course, that would be under Obama, would have been under Obama. So that was the situation. What happened is that we finally started to get traction on this in 2013. And so what you had was the citizen hearing on disclosure, 30 hours of testimony, which included 3 hours of testimony in the Rockefeller Initiative before 6 former members of Congress. Then in November of 2014, all of that testimony was delivered to every congressional office, all 539 of them, I think, counting the territories. And then I arrived in November. I had some funding. I was able to get my publicist, who is a longtime Washington insider, on board. She started approaching the media. I was approaching the media, and very quickly we began to get articles about the Congressional Hearing Initiative, my attempts to talk to people on the Hill, as well as the presidential campaign and Clinton. And that started in November and just continued. And over the next, from November of 2014 to June of 2016, which is, I guess, approximately 19 months, PRG was able to generate probably about 500 English language articles in mainstream media on the Clinton ET connection and the Rockefeller Initiative. Another, 500 to 1,000 in non-mainstream media. I mean, web stuff, right? Websites was certainly a lot of those, and then there was international media. I mean, it was just literally everywhere. So the story was out, and the print media were on it. And it was fully in play during the entire presidential campaign that she was running. As a result of this, for the first time in history, a presidential candidate, and not just any presidential candidate, the leading presidential candidate for most of that campaign, was forced to address the issue publicly. And they had already done so in the past, some of her people. John Podesta had spoken about it publicly. President Clinton had spoken about it publicly prior to 2014 several times. But then we were getting them to speak during the election. And so her husband, President Clinton, turned up on talk shows being asked about it. President Obama, who was part of the Clinton team, basically turned up on talk shows being asked about the ET issue. She turned up on talk shows. John Podesta gave several interviews, 14 occasions, I think on 14 occasions up to June the 2nd of 2016. Members of her campaign team were answering questions about the extraterrestrial issue and the connection there. She was never asked about the Rockefeller Initiative directly.
Well, let me ask you this,
she
Stephen,
never
quickly.
referred to it.
We'll get to that real quick. But yeah, I remember Hillary, when she's running for the presidency of the United States, she went on Jimmy Kimmel and she said that she'd really get down to the bottom of the UFOs. But this is where it,
right.
This is where it got weird for me. And I didn't really know if her answer was as genuine as one would assume, due to the fact that she said that, she wanted to get down to the bottom and she was going to let the public know basically about it. She wants disclosure. But the problem was when she says, well, if it involved national security, then I guess I wouldn't tell anybody. So that was a conflict, in my opinion. But isn't UFOs a national security in its own way? Why would she say that if it's national security, I'm not going to say it? It's almost like a no-brainer that obviously that it would.
Look, that caveat that she included is a standard thing. It was not important. She stated that it's a reasonable thing to state, but nevertheless, what's important was that she was answering any questions about it at all. And probably the most important moment was December the 30th, 2015, and that's when she gave her interview to the Conway Daily Sun to a reporter there named Damon Steer. And she knew that he was interested in the issue, and it was no accident, I believe, that she approached him. He asked her about the issue. In the space of 90 seconds, she said that she would get to the bottom of the issue, that she perhaps would create a task force to get Area 51, of all things. And more importantly, she stated, maybe we've already been visited, we just don't know. These three comments launched a media storm. Hundreds of articles all around the world were generated in January 2016. So again, the political coverage of the extraterrestrial issue from November of 2014 to essentially to late in the campaign, we'll say going up to about August, was unprecedented in history. Nothing had ever been like it. The leading presidential candidate was on the record now repeatedly, as was her campaign chairman. So was her husband, President Clinton. And we were on the brink of this thing exploding, which is exactly what Paradigm Research Group wanted to do. However, there were still a couple of obstacles that had to be breached, and the most important one was the television news. Now, for those that are not familiar with the truth embargo and generally how it works and the various the participation by various institutional entities, this is a pretty stark example. You had a 2-year campaign, most expensive campaign in American history. You had 3 initial Republican candidates. You had 3 initially Democratic candidates. There were 33, 4 primary debates and town halls where these candidates were interviewed, right? And then, of course, we had, I don't know how many, 3 or 4 presidential debates. And
sure, the media wanted to sell this. They were opening up forums to go, let's do this, and everybody wanted to be a part of it. There's free advertising for them. Why not? But here's the question. You say that Hillary was leading in the polls. Didn't the polls get it wrong? That's that I don't understand that. Maybe she wasn't leading in the polls.
I don't think.
By the
polls
way,
got it wrong.
Well, I don't know. It seems like they did because now we have Donald Trump. But it could have been through the WikiLeaks.
The polls didn't get it wrong. What happened was that there's some very dramatic events that took place in the last virtually 2 weeks of the campaign or the last 10 days, which created such tumult in the electorate that polling became essentially not effective. People were getting information, very extraordinary information was coming out literally on a daily basis. And when you have that kind of volatility, it's very difficult to get accurate polling. And so toward the end, the polls didn't get it right, and things were moving away from her towards her opponent. So that explains that. But the point I'm trying to make before, this is very important. You have to understand that for almost 2 years, all these articles are being published around the world and in the United States about the connection between a leading presidential candidate and the ET issue, her husband, the former president, and the ET issue, her campaign chairman, John Podesta, and the ET issue, all over the place. Now comes the debates, right, that tens upon millions of people are going to watch. All of these debates were controlled by the television media, the television news shows. In other words, all of the debate moderators, with maybe one exception, maybe two, of these 33 primary debates and forums, as well as the presidential debates, were television news anchors. Now, one of the most important things to note about these television news anchors, and everybody knows who we're talking about here, is they're virtually, with few exceptions, millionaires. They're all making between $1 and $20 million a year. And so these millionaires are then given the responsibility to put the questions to the candidates. And the way it's described by the campaign, presidential campaign debate commission, and by the networks themselves, is that they literally have it's on their plate. It's not like the owners of the networks are telling them what to do. These political news hosts are making up the questions. All right, and in all of these 33 primary debates and forums and the presidential debate, not a single question was asked of any candidate, not the least of which Secretary Hillary Clinton, about the ET connection that was being written up in articles all over the United States. This is utterly improbable. It's astounding. It's a obvious example.
Well, they did it to Dennis
that particular segment of the media not being able to do that for reasons we don't fully understand. Well, they actually remembered Dennis Kucinich, that debacle when they asked him if anybody on the panel believed in UFOs, and they ridiculed him beyond belief. That would be one of the reasons why I'd imagine the board, the process of the election process, they decided to leave that question out just because of okay, here let me just ask you straight up. Do you think if Hillary Clinton were elected and not Donald Trump, we would have a better chance at disclosure? Is that the point? The goal was to force the issue virtually out in the open during the campaign, and once that issue was out, it would have escalated very quickly, and was resulted in huge amount of media pressure directed at the White House and the Pentagon. And the goal was to see disclosure under Obama. That's what we wanted, right? Because one, once someone's in the White House, you don't know what they're going to do, and two, she might not win. I predicted in August of 2014, it's on film, that there was a good chance she wouldn't win. And in fact, I put out a number of open letters to Secretary Clinton, which are on the internet and which were referred to in some articles, where I basically say that if she doesn't address this issue, which is this major truth, she wouldn't make it to the White House. And it turns out I was right. Now, since the television news moderators that monopolize the presidential campaign debates refused to address an issue that was in the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Washington Times, the Times of London, and all and on and on and on, like it just wasn't there. It's unbelievable. Since they didn't do that, the next situation was if she wins the election, then all of this news coverage, all of her statements by herself, by Podesta, by her husband, literally come into play even more powerfully the day after she wins that election. And so all of the reporters that have written all these hundreds of stories, 37 of which, including 2 Pulitzer Prize winners, I was in direct contact with on a regular basis, meaning I had an ongoing source relationship with, would have been able to then come at her and go, okay, now you're going to be the President of the United States. We want to know more about this. And if they didn't force it out during the transition, when she goes into the White House, it becomes even more intense. And so my sense was that if Clinton wins the election, given all the work that had been done, all the media that had been generated, that she would have been in a position where she virtually had to take action, which means that she would have had to go to the Pentagon and force a deal with the Pentagon that would allow her to disclose, and she would have been the disclosure president. When she loses the election, the advocacy movement for disclosure comes to an absolute screeching halt as of November the 8th, 2016. And it is still in suspension as we try to regroup and decide where to go next.
Well, it's interesting because Donald Trump just met with the Pentagon within the past 24 hours. Now that he is president, and put in all politics aside, it's all about disclosure. Now, Trump is in charge. Doesn't he seem like a man that might be more thinking out of the box in regards to this? He is basically, he's been in Hollywood, so he would know how to put this out to the people in a very entertaining way, more than most candidates, in my opinion. I'm just saying, this guy's up there. He could do whatever he wants. Why doesn't he? What do you think? Why wouldn't he want to do that? I did see recently that somebody went up to him, try to get a question. What do you think about the UFO phenomenon? And
Right.
he refused to answer the guy. He didn't say a thing. So this is a little disconcerting in my opinion, but he did make some statements in the inaugural speech about locking the mysteries of space. What comes to your mind in regards to that, and Donald Trump's mind? Where do you think?
The entire set of equations that the advocacy movement has been using completely go out the window when he is elected, and a whole new set of equations have got to be formulated. Yeah, the circumstances are dramatically different. I can give you some of the parameters here that we're looking at. One, Donald Trump has never said anything about the ET issue ever in his entire life. Two, the Republican Party has never said anything about the ET issue, virtually. There's one exception that comes to mind.
He did say unlocking the mysteries of space during the inaugural speech.
That is not about ETs. That's locking the mystery of space could mean anything. I'm talking about direct statements regarding the extraterrestrial issue. The only person that comes close is Stephen Schiff, who was a Republican congressman that looked into the Roswell issue and tried to get records from the government on it back in 94 or 5, and he was stonewalled, and they didn't give him anything. Other than that, Republicans are complete blank. They have in no way given any indication that they have the slightest interest in the truth coming out on this. So that's a second variable. Third variable, Donald Trump is a rogue. He is an outsider. He is a rogue, and therefore capable of doing anything. He is not operating under the normal protocols. The truth embargo is, in fact, a protocol. And so the idea that he might challenge that protocol is certainly possible. And people have been talking about that on the Internet, though most of it's wishful thinking. Fourth parameter, Donald Trump President Trump, rather, being who he is, during the campaign, insulted the generals, military generals. He attacked the FBI, not the FBI, but the intelligence agencies, rather, in general, which is not a good idea. And I believe there's considerable amount of concern within the military intelligence community about him, and they're going to be treating him very carefully. And therefore, the potential for a brokered deal between the White House and the military intelligence complex, meaning the Pentagon, to allow disclosure to go forward is certainly very up in the air and perhaps much less likely under Trump. Another parameter, he did bring in and has put around him a number of generals, which is interesting, even though he attacked the competence of the generals. But again, he says things off the cuff, and so you can't to overemphasize any particular statement that he made. But clearly, he was disrespectful of the military intelligence community in various ways. And then he selects a number of generals to be in key positions around him. Very interesting. Those generals, former general, and I think in every case, retired, they could be a logical bridge between the White House and Pentagon if a effort to reach an understanding allowing disclosure were to take place, assuming there is any attempt to make that effort. And right now, there is no pressure on either the Pentagon or the White House to engage this issue at all. I mean, the media has dropped out of the coverage completely in terms of the political coverage. It's all disappeared. I'm not surprised at that. And without any pressure, and given the fact that there are now just scores of issues that are just jumping up as we're going through this very chaotic transition, it's highly unlikely that that issue could be brought to bear at all, barring something profound happening. So we're in, it's kind of like a hurricane, And as I've said many times, one of my metaphors, you can't play canasta in a hurricane. You put your cards away and you wait for the storm to pass. And that's kind of what Paradigm Research Group is doing right now. His statement about exploring the mysteries of space, noted, but without any further information, without any elaboration. The speculating is just wishful thinking. And there's a lot of wishful thinking going on. A lot of frustrated people out there. I've got a lot of
I got you,
that are very upset. Yeah.
I got you, but he said unlocking the mysteries of space. Well, that's fine. It's great that that we have a discussion, because that's what Third Phase of the Moon's all about: getting different sides and opinions of different people, and not filtering it, just putting it out there to the world. You mind sticking around for a few more minutes? Maybe get some questions from the public. We just take the calls. All right, let's bring them in. I know. That's great. I think we got F1 with us. F1, go ahead. You got a question for Stephen Bassett? You're up.
Yeah, hi, Steve. Question. First of all, it's an honor and a privilege and a pleasure to speak with you. So thank you for that. Get that out of the way.
You're welcome.
My question would be this. I'm just going to limit it to one topic, in your opinion on this. Do you think that the Ark of the Covenant, or the powers of the box that is supposedly labeled by Gabriel, do you believe that that's now in the South Pole? And do you believe that it is a weapon that works on sound, and that it is a threat to the reptilian types of ET?
That's easy. No, and no. I don't have any confidence in those ideas, those speculations at all. Sorry. I just don't.
I got you. But there is a lot of chatter about Antarctica recently, and there's been some high politicians visiting the area. So people are, they're out there wondering what the heck is going on. Is it climate change? Is it something else? People are wondering about this. But so no answer for on that one. But how about this, Stephen? What about WikiLeaks? WikiLeaks is a pretty good source to go to for information, in my opinion. They're putting out they back up what they put out, and there was a lot of talk about some UFO activity. I know that brings a lot to the table. You got discussions. What was the most interesting thing that you've seen that's come out from WikiLeaks in regards to the UFO phenomenon?
Oh, that's fairly easy. WikiLeaks has not revealed or dumped any significant records out regarding the ET issue directly. Julian Assange was asked about this a while back. There was an interview, and he was directly asked, "Are you getting, or why have you not published information about the ET issue, the UFO issue?" And what he said is that they're not getting the kinds of materials that they would consider worthy of dealing with. And he elaborated, and what he was basically saying, to paraphrase, was that we publish raw documents from corporate, what have you, that break down the opaque wall and create some transparency. And they're not getting those kinds of documents. They're getting, I think, probably stuff from people about, look at what I wrote, or look at this book, or look at this website. That's not it. They're not getting a document dump. And I'm not surprised at that, because the ET issue is the most highly classified thing in the United States military intelligence complex, period. Those who are directly involved in it are under extremely severe sanctions if they were to take action on this. And so this, in other words, it's classified above Snowden. Snowden couldn't have got access to this material. So that was what he had to say about that. Okay, so there has been no significant dump, except the DNC leak. Well, not the DNC leak, but the Podesta files. This is where things get interesting. I don't. I'd love to know more about the particulars here, but as most of your listeners probably know, part of the chaos that occurred in the last days of the election, which made it difficult to poll accurately what was going on in people's heads. about who they're going to vote for is that WikiLeaks started a dump of 58,000 documents obtained from the computer of John Podesta. I believe it was just emails. I don't think attachments were included, but maybe they were. And these 58,000 documents were then released on a time-release basis in which 2,000 to 3,000 were released every day over a period of, I think, like 15, 18, 20 days to maximize the impact of their release. They could have just been dumped in one whole thing. There it is, look at it. But instead, every day you had a new release. Well, PRG was most interested in this because PRG was very well aware that there was correspondence in Podesta's emails regarding the ET issue. And so as those documents came out, PRG tracked them all and published in its updates. And you can subscribe to the updates by going to paradigmresearchgroup.org and clicking on the link to subscribe to the PRG mail list. About 85 documents had references to the ET issue in various ways, including emails that I had sent him. And these were all presented to the media. These were all put out to all the reporters I was working with. And there were some articles written about it. I was hoping to see stronger stuff in those Podesta files than we got. What we got was extremely interesting. It clearly showed that they were engaging it, clearly showed that this was no joke, but a really powerful email that might have really set the media on fire did not turn up. And that is the extent of WikiLeaks' contribution to
you're right.
the disclosure process.
Yeah, it was a little lackluster, and who knows? Maybe there's somebody editing some of that on top of what is being released above WikiLeaks. For all we know, I'm not sure. There's a little ruffling sound in the background, but let's bring in one more caller. Let's bring in one more caller. Let's see if they got a question for Stephen. 843, you're live, Third Phase Moon. You got a question for Mr. Stephen Bassett? Go ahead. Okay, 843 there? No, we're going to move on. Let's see. 571. You got a question for us, Stephen? 571. Hello. You're live.
Hello,
yep, go ahead with your question.
Yes, it is, sir.
Hello, I'm Dimitri from MUFON Corporation, and I was wondering, because we have a lot of evidence, but not enough believers, I would call them, about ET or the third kind or other than humans. Humanoids, we have a lot of evidence on them, and the Armadillians also. Also, I wanted to ask you a couple questions.
Yeah, go ahead. First question, go ahead.
43 battle of the UFOs, or what they would call it, when the U.S. or I think it was U.S. or Germany tried to take down a mothership and could not actually do any damage to that. And it's in public, like documentary, so it's not like fake or anything. Do you know anything about that?
You're referring to the Battle of Los Angeles, 1941. Yeah, they thought that there was possibly something flying over Los Angeles at the time, and they obviously decided it could be an enemy craft, and so they unloaded on it and weren't able to bring down whatever it is they were seeing. It's a famous event. There is a famous photo about it. We don't know to this day what it was. It could have been somehow just panic thing, but it's part of the annals of the extraterrestrial history. It may turn out that there was no ET craft there. It was something else, but obviously so much more has happened since then. It's far more important and convincing to the confirmation of ET presence. But it's a notable event. So
absolutely. We got another caller. Let's get some more callers.
Okay.
Let's bring them in. Let's go to area code 727. You got a question for Stephen Bassett? Go ahead.
Yeah, hi. First time caller. My name is Adam. Hello.
Mm-hmm. Hi, Adam.
Hi. I'm sorry to bother you, sir. I just got a question. I've been watching Third Phase of Moon now for about a year, and I just recently saw what y'all did with that underground base, and I want to say I'm very impressed, and it's very cool. One, and two, Mr. Steven, I was wondering, when it comes to the whole phenomenon, when it comes to not the Antarctica theory that the first person was out talking about, but when it comes to the whole theory of Project Bluebeam and the whole earthquakes and the whole thing going on with the anatomic gold and the Iberian Sea, I think it is. But what do you think's going on with Project Bluebeam, the entire earthquakes, the skyquakes, and everything that's going on with Nibiru supposedly coming by? If you don't mind me asking.
No, of course not. Look, there are scores upon scores upon scores of theories that are out there. The internet is a great place to follow and generate such theories, direct or indirect connections to the ET issue. They're interesting, often entertaining. Most of them will prove false. In fact, almost most of the material, more than half, maybe as much as 70% or more of all the material relating to the ET issue in the public domain will ultimately prove false. This is not a criticism per se. It is what you would expect given that the government has embargoed this issue and refused to allow the full acknowledgement out and therefore allow proper research and allow us to start sorting the wheat from the chaff. And so over the last 70 years, all these theories have developed. All the ones that you've mentioned there, again, don't have a lot of confidence in those at all. However, there is one that you mentioned which is important, and that's Bluebeam. The reason Bluebeam is important is that essentially Bluebeam is the theory that a false flag ET event will be created by the government as part of a disclosure process in order to manipulate the public through fear towards some government agenda, which most people would assume, huge hundreds of billions of dollars of new defense spending and weapons and whatever else, which they're so fond of. And that's what Bluebeam is about. I am glad that people are worried about that. I'm glad they're paying attention. And if that means creating elaborate scenarios that they've heard from insiders in the government or whatever, it's still good that they're paying attention. Do I think the government will do a false flag around disclosure? No, I don't think so. But I'm glad we're paying attention, and I'm glad the government knows we're paying attention, because it's possible that some idiot might try to pull that off, or at least try to make the case for that, just like the military intelligence community made a case to JFK right after he became president that he needed to back an invasion of Cuba, Bay of Pigs. But I don't think it'll happen. I think that the risk there is enormous, and they couldn't pull it off because thanks to the internet and the fact that now hundreds of millions of people around the world are very now aware of this issue, they're attuned to this issue, they're paying attention, and they're ready to jump into it with both feet should it finally achieve what we'll give you.
Yeah, but they do control everything about the internet as well. And Russia has recently launched this thing called the satellite destroyer. So, there's a lot of things that they could suppress real quickly if they really wanted to pull off something. But also, one quick note, there are scientists out there that would pretty much 100% bet all their money or agree that there is a planet X out there in our solar system. And people would have thought there would be wacko if they said this just a few years ago about Nibiru or Planet X. So, there might be a Planet X out there, Mr. Bassett. The scientists have already said that it's out there, more likely there than not.
Is that a question?
No, just a statement. Okay, let's bring in one more question. And then definitely this has been exciting. This is cool stuff. Area code 386. You got a question for Stephen Bassett? Go ahead.
Hi. I just was kind of more wondering if there's certain regions around the world that tend to maybe have more activity or specific types of craft I don't know if there's a generalization that maybe over in the Middle East or Russia or here or somewhere that tends to kind of maybe give a overall theme of what they would expect to be coming forward. Like, why is there everywhere around the world they're spotted? Is there a type that maybe stands out more than another that maybe is symbolic of something over something else?
Obviously, the amount of money needed to really survey the entire history of the phenomena, particularly sightings, the types, what have you, locations, would cost a fortune. And this field has never had that kind of money. The truth embargo has helped to ensure that very wealthy people and people that actually believe ETs are real simply will not fund the research for fear of being embarrassed. But MUFON is probably your best shot there. I mean, if you contact MUFON, they do have databases, and there have been efforts to chronicle locations, concentrations, and even the types of craft. But the kind of, I think, discernment that you're looking for is even more sophisticated. There's no question that there's a concentration of sightings around the world in different places. This may just be because of population centers. It may be because in some parts of the world people just don't report or don't have the ability to see some of these things. There seems to be a more localized concentration around military bases in some instances. But the actual dispersal and the where, the what's, and the hows is still pretty much impossible at this point to really get a handle on. The sightings occur worldwide without question, and contact is taking place, I think, in all countries. So I view it as a global phenomena, and those particulars are not particularly essential, not really essential to the disclosure process per se. However, these are things that we would expect to learn a lot more about in the post-disclosure world, when the government finally acknowledges the truth of this, and we can start pressing the government for everything that it knows. And then the research into the field will be funded to whatever limit it could possibly want, and the truth will become globalized. But right now, I'm afraid we just have to wait and do the best with what we have. But there is a lot of information about sighting and about craft and about what ETs look like on the internet. It's not hard to find.
Well, Stephen, let me ask you this. Have you ever seen a UFO? What made you get into this? Because you've been around it. You want to disclose it. What have you seen? Have you seen anything strange in the sky? Go ahead.
Personally, no. Nothing. And I haven't had contact. Obviously, I've seen videos and photos of lots and lots of sightings, and I've talked to many, many contactees and what have you. But personally, no. I got into this field because I am a political activist at heart, and I saw this as an incredibly important issue that was not being dealt with properly with implications, and I got involved on that basis. Incredibly interesting. Who would deny that? And then after I got involved, it became even more intense for me, because in the process of acclimating myself to the history of the ET issue and trying to understand the why, what, where, and when of it, I came to develop a pretty good understanding of what's going on with the U.S., what's wrong with the U.S., and why we've been heading down the path we've been going. I became aware of what I call the broad spectrum dysfunction that is now developed within the country, the body politic. And it was pretty clear that if something dramatic doesn't happen pretty soon, the United States is headed for a very, very unsettling and unpleasant place. Possibly the end of the Republic, possibly a nuclear war. Really bad things are coming toward the United States, as well as the rest of the planet. I mean, we cannot continue to operate our world computer, on this operating system. It's like trying to operate a modern laptop using a Altair or a Commodore operating system. It's impossible. And so we're pretty much headed for a hell in a handbasket. And as I got to know that and understand that better, my passion for getting this thing resolved became essentially implacable. So that's why I'm involved. I'm not that amazed about ETs. It's not shocking.
Yeah.
I want to meet an extraterrestrial.
What do you think?
I'm doing it because if we
about...
don't disclose this ET presence, the United States is going to be in deep trouble. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I hope not. I'm more of an optimist in regards to the future. I have faith in humankind, no matter how top in control the people are in charge. With the world's largest archives of UFOs on our channel right now, the word is getting out. But what do you think of Dr. Greer? Do you think he can summon UFOs? Have you been to any of his events? I'm sure you're in close proximity to him. Why haven't you gone to any of his events? I'm just wondering.
I have gone. I have attended one of his events. I don't have. I don't deal in that area. I can't comment on whether UFOs can be summoned or not.
I got you.
If I had to bet one way or the other, I would say yes. It's not that illogical, and I've talked to people that have had experiences like that. So that, as far as I can go there, I'm not dealing in that realm. I'm a political activist. I'm
I got you.
Media.
Yeah, it's a whole different ballgame.
The whole contactee movement.
There's different sides of the
battlefront. Ongoing. Yeah, absolutely. But I'm not involved in the contactee movement per se, but what's going on there is very significant. And I assure you that more contactees are coming out every day, and you're going to see more interesting stories about interaction. And so all that's part of the entire picture, without question.
Yeah, fair enough. Absolutely. We've got a few minutes left. We've got about 10 minutes left. So let's get one more question, and then we're going to find out what Stephen's going to be doing in the next year, because things are happening real quickly, it seems to me. So it's a new president of time. And president. We got a new president and a new president of things that are going down. But one last caller, 727. You got a question for Stephen Bassett? Go ahead.
Yeah, hi. How you doing again? I asked a question about Project Bluebeam earlier. Just my last question, because I'm kind of interested in the subject that you have.
I got you, but I want to get a new caller, so sorry about that. But yeah, thanks for. We're going to be going back down to that bunker system, by the way, that we've been putting up on our YouTube channel. It's been quite scary stuff. To the caller, 706. You got a question for Stephen Bassett? Go ahead.
Yes, I do. Thank you. My name is Sophia. Blake knows me. I am a military rat, so to speak, and I am also ex-military Army DOD. I am also a contactee. That aside, I agree wholeheartedly with everything that you're saying. You are an absolute voice of reason to me right now. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I also agree that we are coming to a crisis point. I hold that our government is not going to cooperate in any way, shape, or form, ever, until they're forced. And that's highly likely it's going to happen. And when it does, it would be better for the public, and I believe this wholeheartedly, to keep researching on their own and doing privately their own types of empirical data gathering, I guess is the word. In other words, I would like to see more scientists step up to the plate and find funding to do the research necessary, because there is a lot going on. And if everybody keeps their head straight and realizes that we are dealing with ET, they are advanced, extremely advanced. I can tell you that from a personal perspective. Humankind has really not come up to the plate yet in understanding what that really actually entails and means for us. And if disclosure happens, I hope it happens soberly with all that in mind,
Sure.
I think they're looking for us to evolve, so to speak, and to become more cognizant of what really goes on and what we need to be learning ourselves. And that at least is the messages I keep getting, We're we are infants about to have a temper tantrum to them, and they won't let us go that far. A third world war is intolerable, and it could do more damage than we realize we're totally unaware of how bad it could get. We have the capability of destroying ourselves. And I guarantee you, they haven't invested their time for us to fail with that.
Mm.
And from a I'm just curious, from your political point of view, how do you think that's going to happen?
Mm-hmm. Let me respond. There's two things I need to respond to. One, I certainly understand why people would think or hope that extraterrestrials would intervene if we were to finally press the button, that button we spent so many thousands of years finally perfecting, and launch the nuclear war. I don't blame them, but I'm not counting on it. I could think of a lot of reasons why they wouldn't, and so we can't afford the luxury of not pursuing resolution of this issue. Certainly disclosure, anticipating that if things go to hell, they'll step in. Can't do it. Can't risk it. But I understand why people would think that way. The other one, though, is interesting. What you just said raises a very important point. For those and I've had many tell me this, that distinct disclosure cannot happen, period. It just simply cannot happen. One of the things that they don't consideration is that, one, there are plenty of people within the government, both in the political side and in the military intelligence side, who would like to see disclosure, that favor it, that want the truth out. That doesn't mean they can do anything, but they are there. We have those supporters inside that, if the time or circumstances were right, might be useful. And secondly, there are contactees within the military intelligence complex. There are contactees within the Congress and the congressional staff. We know this because we have a pretty good idea. We have some idea of the number of contacts that are being made, the percentage of the population. And so just imagine that. You've got contactees in deep, programs. You've got contactees with clearances inside the Pentagon and so forth, who obviously cannot say anything. They can't speak out. I doubt they're telling their bosses that they're in contact. But they are, in fact, having contact. And so this is not strictly a binary situation where you have an absolute opposing force against the disclosure process. And you're an example of that. I know others. So, again, I appreciate you talking about, you bringing that out, and you're not alone. There are people inside the government that want to end this truth embargo, and we're trying to get to them. And the best way to get to them is to get the media really fired up so that the media goes after the Pentagon and the White House and demands answers.
Absolutely. Whistleblowers out there need to come forward, too. There's the whistleblowers are seeing things, they've experienced things, and sometimes they come out on these deathbed confessions, but they need to come out a little earlier and maybe grab something on the way out so you have some tangible evidence, in my opinion. I know it would take guts, but hey, that's what it's going to take. So whistleblowers out there, it's up to you guys too. Now, Stephen, what are you going to be doing this year? I know it's going to be an uphill climb, it sounds like, from the way you've been describing things. How are you going to get the ball rolling on this?
Well, right now, Paradigm Research Group is regrouping, consolidating the PRG's Facebook presence, establishing a second DBA, which is PRG International, establishing the basis for doing some contacts overseas, maybe leading to contacts with some governments. I will be in the UK or in Europe from April 4 to May 10. I've got one speaking engagement. I'm looking to speak anywhere in Europe, particularly during that time. So if anyone has a significant venue in Europe, pretty much anywhere in Europe between April 4 and May 10, I'm interested in maybe presenting. Then I will be coming back to the United States. I'm also, one of the things that happened once the election took place and the entire Clinton ET connection track was truncated, funds pretty much dried up. The funding coming into PRG dried up, which is understandable because the principal lever we had was gone. Right now, so I'm trying to find new funding. If I can get some significant funding, there is an interesting opportunity, and that is that my publicist, who I'm not able to work with now because I don't have the funds, has significant contacts within the Trump administration. And if I can bring her back on board, it might be possible to set up meetings high up within the Trump administration to maybe at least off the record discuss this. So I'm going to have to get some decent funding to do that, and hopefully that'll come up. So that's kind of where things are right now.
Stephen, you've got to keep up the good work. I called you the bulldog in regards to trying to find out the truth in Washington, D.C., in regards to this UFO phenomenon and all the contact and links to the Stephen Bassett's Paradigm Research Initiative. Basically, the links are below, all of it, and you check it out for yourself. He's done amazing work, and when you get to speak to Donald Trump, and he wants to see evidence as well as, just not testimony, video evidence from the people. We have the largest archive. Be sure to tell him we'll be more than happy to come to Washington, D.C. and share our massive archive. It might work.
Well and good.
All right, everybody. That was Stephen Bassett, and we'll be doing this again Monday night. And you know what? We're going to be taking calls from the public. The public speaks. They share it right here at Third Phase Moon, and it is real-time disclosure, in my opinion, and it is quite incredible. Thanks for joining us on the Flash Chat, everybody. Again, Monday night, we'll be broadcasting live, and don't forget to take a look at our latest episode as I go deep into an underground bunker system. Where does it lead? You got to take a look at this video. It was intense, guys. It was intense. So, again, join us this Monday, same time, everybody. Keep your eyes on the skies. We're not alone.